Hey, if you don't have any real-world experience, what projects you show basically decide if you will get hired as a Salesforce developer. Let's go over how to break this problem where you have no experience, but you need experience for the job. You basically have to create your own experience and show that you have some coding skills. The best way to do it is with projects. So criteria number one, your project must look good. Let's compare this to websites. I would trust much more the one on the right side. For Salesforce, being beautiful is very subjective because it's a business software, but still, if your org is super messy or the demo that you're showing, it has a lot of different tabs and doesn't have any design at all, that's not gonna play into your role. Because people who are gonna review your project, they will also not spend a lot of time on it. If they look at it and it's a big mess, it's gonna be quite off-putting, even though your project might be really impressive. The next point is that your project must be clear for non-developers. Usually the way all the interviews go are like this. First you have screening, then you speak to some kind of management, and then if you pass these two stages, you go into the technical interview and you speak to developers. Maybe you speak to developers a little bit more, maybe you have a few more rounds, but basically that's the idea. So first, people who are gonna see your CV or resume and who are gonna speak with you first, they gonna judge you just based on what they see in the CV and in the projects and what criteria they have, and they are usually non-technical people. So the projects that you have, they must be not highly technical. It's nice that you can implement black-red research, but it doesn't say anything for a non-technical person. The next point is that your project must be useful for at least one person in the world. It can be you, it can be someone from your family, it can be your sister, but it must be useful for someone. So for example, a to-do list is not really useful because you can already just download an app. That doesn't solve any existing problem. Ideally, your project should be that useful that you can publish it on App Exchange and actually charge for it. So it's some kind of mini startup that you should aim for. So please, no to-do lists, no tables where you show the best stocks of the day. That's all have been done so many times. And exactly for the same reason, Trailhead super pages are also not qualifying as good projects. Yes, this is good for just testing your skills, just maybe improving your skills, but that's not actually something that you should show on your CV because they solve a very imaginary problem that doesn't really exist now in the world, and the problem that you don't really care about, the universal containers, you don't care if they get more sales or not. The next very important point is that your project must be technically complex, and the more complex, the better, because after you speak to all these non-developer people, you will also speak to the developer people, and probably they will decide if you will get hired or no. In order to pass the development interview, not only you need to show good skills on the interview itself, you also need to communicate that you're actually good at development and you can actually solve quite complex problems as for a beginner. So for example, no one will expect you to be able to write the best code because you're a beginner. No one expects you to know everything because you're just starting out. But if you can build something that is impressive from the technical standpoint, it's going to play a really huge role in hiring. And the next point, you have to build some kind of demo for all the people that you're going to speak with. The key of the demo is that you can communicate in just 5 to 10 seconds what your project does, what problem it solves, why this project, and how was it done. You need to have a technical description, and you also need to have some kind of walkthrough with the screenshots or the best case video that's going to show what is this project about. Don't expect the hiring managers spend a lot of time on researching what is your project about because they have a lot of interviews to screen. So expect and aim that people should be able to understand everything about your project in technical and non-technical people within 5 to 10, maybe 15 seconds of looking at it. You also can include a much more detailed technical description for developers so that developers don't need to go and actually read the code and can just read the architecture, look at the graphics, and just read the explanation of what you've done. And now I want to show an example of my project. It was help to learn German. When you study German, there's this annoying type of exercises where you need to fill the gap in the sentence, and I didn't have enough practice on the internet for this type of tasks. So I created a website with admin panel where you can create such texts and solve them. It had a login page, leaderboard, and it was done with a Spring Boot. So keep in mind, it's almost 5 years ago, and for a person without any work experience, this whole project, doing it with a Spring Boot back then, was quite impressive. And I also had a second project. It was basically just a new programming language with multi-threading in Java. It was not really useful because obviously no one is gonna use a new programming language that doesn't have any new features, but that was exactly for the interview purposes with developers. Because when you say that you develop your own programming language, that sounds interesting. The people generally want to know about that, even though it's not that difficult, but for most developers, it sounds quite cool. And as you see, you can have multiple projects, but combined 2-3 projects in general, they need to have those qualities of being unique. You need to care about them. They need to be technically impressive to showcase your good coding skills, and they must, the most important, solve real existing problem. Thank you, and see you in the next one.